Thank you very much. All right, I would like to call to order the Haymarket, the public hearing and regular monthly meeting for the Haymarket Town Council for Monday, May 5th, 2025. Roll call, please.
Costello, Larson,
Here.
Gallagher, Hager,
Here,
Ramirez, Baker,
Here.
DNA.
Here.
please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So this evening's invocation will be given by Pastor Tim McGowan of Living Hope Evangelical Presbyterian Church.
It's a mouthful.
It-
Would you pray with me, please? Heavenly Father, we just want to take a minute right now to thank you for our lives, our families, and our nation, and our town, and the blessings that we enjoy. We thank you for the freedoms we enjoy. Lord, help us not to take it for granted. I thank you for this town council and the men and women who give their time to manage our affairs and to make sometimes difficult decisions. Please be with them and their families and the concerns and the cares that they have. Thank you for all who will be here tonight and will speak and present requests and concerns. Help each of us to listen humbly and to honor other people as created in your image. Lord, help our council to lead well and to make wise decisions. Give them a sense as to what would please you and be best for the community. And help each of us as citizens to love and serve those around us, even those with whom we disagree, and in this way to promote the common good. I ask all this in the name of the one who changed my life, Jesus Christ. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So at this time, I would like to take a moment to recognize two of our staff members for Municipal Clerks Week, Kim and Alexandria. Thank you for all of your hard work preparing agendas, clerking the meetings, transcribing the minutes, and all of the other countless behind-the-scenes duties. We couldn't do this without all of your hard work and dedication to the town. Our sincerest appreciation goes to both of you during this special week and always. Thank you. Absolutely.
All right, Madam Mayor, members of council, it's good to see all of you. I'm so glad to call you Madam Mayor, by the way. It's great to see you. Good to see our happy little storm cloud Supervisor Weir. How are you? And to all of our staff, thank you so much for joining us today. Delegate Thomas sends his regards. In the last hour, he had to send me a text. His baby's sick today, and so he's playing Daddy Judy at home in Manassas. But I'll be briefing some of the stuff that he worked on this year. So if we've got the slides, I do. Oh, neat. This is the second time. Look, just like when I was in at the Heritage Hunt Town Hall, I was walking around being like, where is it? And they're just like, it's next to you. All right. So let's go for it. So first, you'll see pretty much these are the bills I was working on this year. Obviously, introduced a whole lot of stuff. My totals this year, we had 13 of my bills clear the General Assembly and 9 sign into law. And for the first time in my 8 sessions, I got vetoed 4 times. Baby's first veto. It goes in the ornament. It's a little ornament goes in the tree. So nice. And at the same time, so, these are bills I can fight and bring back. And the thing is, at least 2 of those bills were hyper local for this area. So we're going to talk about why, and we're going to talk about why we did that, and then what the path is going forward. So number 1, as always, as you heard me say up here for the last 8 years, food insecurity, big thing I work on. Some of the bills that we've gotten passed this year are actually going to be really, really helpful with this. First part on here is we finally passed my bill after 3 tries to create the Hunger Free Campus Food Pantry Grant Program. Super proud of this one. This one sets aside $500,000 in the budget so that basically, colleges, universities, including the Nova campus in Manassas, which has a pantry, including George Mason, and guess this will help at the SciTech campus as well as the main campus over in Fairfax, they will qualify for several $1,000s to fully stock their pantries. One less thing for someone who's trying to pull themselves up to have to worry about. This is intended for people who just need a hand so that they're not having to miss tuition payments. They're not having to miss room and board. This is one less thing to, for them to worry about. Next part here, this got really interesting. Bill that got vetoed was actually inspired by what we do in Prince William County already. So this bill would have reallocated school meal debt away from individual schools and assigned it to the school division at the end of a school year. What does this mean? Battlefield High School, for example. Most people think, oh, Battlefield High School located at Dominion Valley. Come on, this has got to be a super wealthy area. They can't be having a lot of people having school meal debt. Routinely, they have 4, if not 5 digits of school meal debt at the end of every year. Routinely, year in, year out, they are not one of our 68 community eligibility provision eligible schools. So that means that we have a number of students who actually have to deal with this. And so what's the consequence out of this? Well, and by the way, same thing applies for Gainesville High School as well. Same exact scenario. So basically at the end of the year, for $1 billion school budget at the division level, $10,000, $12,000 doesn't mean a whole lot to them when they're trying to, pay off stuff. But coming out of an individual school's budget, it's a big deal. And so what we were trying to do is say, hey, look, you can still collect on that debt, but just have it go back at the end of the year for anything that's not collected back to the school division. The governor clearly did not understand what I was trying to do with this. So he vetoed it without calling me or telling me, hey, I got a question for you. Nope, well, we'll have a new governor next year. That's fine. So next one, SB 1018, bill's recommendation from Chev. What this one does is it directs Department of Social Services to work with, to basically develop a sheet with SNAP info so that college students, including at Nova, including at Mason, can see whether they're eligible for SNAP in the first place. We find that the group of students are the group of people who are eligible for SNAP, least likely to be enrolled, are actually college students because they don't know about the program. Another way to address food insecurity on campus. And it doesn't create newly eligibility class. This is just for people who are already eligible, they just don't know about it. Same sort of idea that we did then for directing the Department of Health to provide existing information on SNAP and the WIC program to food banks in the Commonwealth. This was inspired by the Haymarket Regional Food Pantry. I used to do feature stories about them when I was a reporter here, and now they're happily located over in Gainesville. Happy to donate to them too. And so we did get this one signed, so that's pretty cool. And then at the bottom here, you'll also see, Bill, where we want DSS to evaluate the restaurant meals program. So basically determine the effectiveness in the program and see if, gas station down the street like Sheetz, for example, they got MTOs. What very often happens is that someone who's got their EBT card, they go into a place like Sheetz, they're allowed to get a cold sub, but they can't go to the counter and order an MTO and get a hot sub. It's the end of the workday. Sometimes people are coming home at 10, 11 o'clock at night, grocery stores closed. That's dinner. To me, hot meals are not a luxury. Hot meals are a hot meal. We all take it for granted. So a few years ago, 2020, we passed my bill to allow Virginia restaurants and such places to be able to participate in the restaurant meals program. Trust me, no one's going to Ruth Chris with their EBT card. Okay, this is about people just trying to get a meal for at the end of the night. So what this is going to do is basically say, all right, we've got some that are participating. What can we do to see if we can get more restaurants involved? Okay. Data center reform stuff for me. Obviously, I carried about 4 or 5 pieces of legislation that were either directly tied or indirectly tied to the industry. All of them are dead, and this one got vetoed. So what this one would have done is this one would have had the Department of Energy work with the State Corporation Commission to basically develop recommendations for a demand response program. This came directly out of the JLARC report last year. That's called Data Centers in Virginia. And basically they gave us a whole list of recommendations on things that we can do to make sure that our constituents don't get hit with higher electricity bills as the future goes on here, because we know there's going to be massive amounts of energy consumption And we want to make sure that the data center industry is paying its fair share. I earned bipartisan support for this in both chambers, House and Senate. Governor vetoed it. And he vetoed it essentially making the argument of, well, the SEC could already have them do this, and it's already available for industries that want to do it. The report specifically says that the data center industry doesn't participate because they don't feel incentivized in order to do it. And then they list out, here's all the ways that they could actually participate in such a program. The General Assembly should pass something to do something like this. So here we are, right? So I'll bring this one back next year, super easy. One of the ones that died that I am really eager to continue working on is making sure that localities can only site data centers in areas that are zoned industrial and that data centers are classified as industrial use. Frankly, that would solve a lot of the problems that we are currently having. I will get into more data center stuff later when I talk about Delegate Thomas's bills. All right, veterans' rights. If y'all remember from last year, we had a big old issue that came up with the VEMSTEP program, Virginia Military Survivors Independence Education Program. Whole thing that came up with that is basically, all right, are we going to make sure that Gold Star families have their tuition completely covered? Are we going to make sure that children of disabled, at the 90%, 100% rate are having their tuition covered? Making sure that some of these actual veterans themselves are having tuition coverage. That was kind of what we were dealing with this. We had another JLARC report that came out last year. I took the one recommendation from it, I turned it into a bill, we passed the bill, and what this will do is have the Department of Veteran Services work with SHEV, and what they're going to have to do is basically figure out how many people are eligible, how many of those eligible people are currently participating, and then what's the delta, what do we have to do to close the gap? Make sure that everyone who's eligible is able to be enrolled in this in the first place. It's a great program. And that's one of those things, common sense, 100% vote in both chambers. No one's voting against veterans, and no one's stupid enough to vote against a bill like this. So next one, SB 1024. Here's another one that got vetoed. This would have been really, really, really helpful, and I had Haymarket in mind when I did this one. This is a bill that would create voluntary donation process at the DMV when you go to process your driver's license renewal or your vehicle renewal, so your vehicle registration. So that we could then have a little thing that pops up just like we do right now with I think it's for organ transplant stuff. It's like, hey, would you like to donate money to choose life, whatever it is for organ stuff. We want to have another option that says, would you like to contribute voluntarily to the Virginia Highway Safety Improvement Program? Throw in $1, $2, $3. They make thousands of transactions every day. That stuff could add up very, very quickly. When we're being told that the overpass at 15 years ago, we were told $55 million. Now we're being told, what, $90 million to get this thing over the railroad? We had someone get killed over here not too long ago. This is the sort of spot improvement that doesn't score very high when we go to the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority or when we go to Smart Scale. And the reason for that is that it's not designed to deal with congestion mitigation, although I could make an argument for that based on 66. I could make an argument for that. But the way that project would be primarily to take care of the safety problem. What happens when the line goes down, you got a freight train coming, and you've got emergency response vehicles trying to get somewhere? They're going to get stuck, right? And what are you going to do? Have them go down Jefferson to Old Carolina? They could get stuck over there if it's a long train. The idea is let's get that overpass just like Chuck Colgan got at Route 28 over at Wellington and the railroad tracks over there, right by All Saints in the southern states. That's what I'm trying to get. I want more money available in VHSIP so that we actually have this. Now, next year, if things go the way I think they will next year, this fall, this is going to be my top transportation priority for the western end of the county here, is carrying that money over next however long it takes for us to get that overpass. That's a really, 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 really important safety issue for this community. Government transparency here. One thing now, when you look on election night, you'll see, okay, results are coming in. You'll see, okay, if you voted over at Tyler Elementary on day of the election, okay, you can see exactly how many people voted for candidate A, how many people voted for candidate B. One of the other things that we do is we reallocate early vote now back to that precinct. So we go, okay, here's how many people from Tyler voted early by mail. Okay, so we see this candidate A earned this many, candidate B earned this many. Okay, here's how many people voted early in person, you see the same thing. And we even see after 3 days where if you have a ballot, as long as it is put in the mail before 5 o'clock on election day, that it has until noon on Friday to arrive in order to be counted. And even that, we call it post-election, we can see how many of those votes came from Tyler, right? The one sort of vote we can't see reallocated back to the individual precincts are provisional ballots. Here's why this is important. Last year, because same-day voter registration was in its second year, over 100,000 Virginians cast same-day voter registration provisional ballots last year. It was a really, really big deal. That's a very important thing for us to note when we are doing redistricting in 2030. Here's the thing. All of those votes get counted at the central level. So we know for your individual race how many provisional ballots were cast, but they don't get reassigned back to the precinct. Again, this doesn't change who's voting. This changes how we count the data. And so we want it to be as precise as possible. So I got this bill passed, actually with State Senator David Suderland as my chief co. So we had good bipartisan support in the Senate for that. He had passed the original one that got those early votes reallocated. So that was cool. And then this bill here, SB 1415, this is, please, I hope we never need this bill, but in the event that there's ever another pandemic, that we can cut red tape and immediately get the procurement that we need to get PPE out into the community. This is one of those just easy common sense things. We're weirdly one of those things when it cross chambers, it got like caught a fever on one side and you're just like, come on, it's a commission recommendation, y'all, get your stuff together. So anyways, it passed, that's the important part. And then, yeah, final thing here, I'll also say is, oh wait, oops, I went backward. I also took care of a charter change for the city of Manassas Park this year. Just saying that because, well, I've taken care of one for y'all before as well. Anytime that you need charter change, come to me. I'm happy to deal with that. I'm vice chair of the local government committee in the Senate, so happy to take care of that. Okay, now for Delegate Thomas's stuff, this bill, HB 1601, earned bipartisan support in both chambers. Delegate Thomas negotiated for months on this bill. He brought in folks from the Coalition to Protect Prince William. I know he talked to Supervisor Weir. I know he talked even to the data center industry people, and he tried to get as many people in the room together, try to hammer out a deal. This would have been the first time that we actually had shalls, where the state says they shall have to actually run studies for noise abatement and then present it to their locality before they actually get an approval for rezoning. They actually shall have to look at different siting stuff, blah, 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 blah. And then it gives the localities permission to do a bunch of other stuff, right? So the governor came back and he tried to amend the two shalls into mays, and then, which guts the entire intent of the bill, and then he put a reenactment clause on the end of it to say, okay, well, the bill's dead anyway, and you'd have to pass it again, even if, or even if you accepted this. And so obviously we rejected those amendments because those were not in good faith. And so we sent the bill back to him and the governor just vetoed it. So now it's dead. So this is one of those things where Delegate Thomas is absolutely going to be bringing this or some version of this back next year. It is really unfortunate that the one thing that we got over the finish line where we could actually get Republicans and Democrats singing from the same page in both chambers is something that got vetoed by the governor. That is just bluntly disrespectful of the legislative process that it actually took to develop this in the first place. A lot of people put a lot of hours into this, and that is incredibly unfortunate the way that it went down. Some other stuff that he dealt with, he actually got his bill signed that basically says if you knowingly sell fentanyl to someone and then that person dies from that overdose, that you can now be charged with involuntary manslaughter. So that's something that's kind of new here. Next part, Bill. This one was his bill died in the House for a procedural reason, but it's identical cognate in the Senate got out and they were able to amend it, and then that one got signed into law. This basically says that it limits kids who are, I think, 16 and under to 1 hour of social media per day. Their parents can then toggle to say like, okay, you can use more, you can use less. All the research shows that too much media consumption, especially by young people, leads to a lot of mental health issues, a lot of crises that's coming out from this. So we actually had a lot of bipartisan support on this bill. Last one here, this bill updates and modernizes emergency data reporting in Virginia by requiring localities to utilize the new NERIS fire reporting system. This will give us better data on emergency incidents so that first responders can keep the community safe. So that's pretty cool. He's got a couple other things here. One for bill to require jails and prisons to use the Veterans Reentry Search Service to identify incarcerated veterans and provide them with specialized services, blah, blah, blah. And then the last one here, a bill require hospitals and other healthcare providers to provide patients with one free copy of their medical records to support a Social Security or Department of Veterans Affairs claim or appeal. That was also signed. And then you have another bill here for teachers. This caps the amount of non-academic trainings that teachers can be required to participate in each year, freeing them up to do what they do best, which is teach. So that's what ended up happening. And at this point, we expect we might get called back in a special session in September, looking at September 8th, 12th to do that. All of that is going to deal with the impacts of the federal government. So basically, all of our constituents losing their jobs and the economic effect that that's having in the Commonwealth. The governor just cut $900 million from our budget because of all this stuff, or at least ostensibly because of this stuff. And so the biggest part of that $900 million is taking all these capital improvement projects from our colleges and universities and basically putting those off, so telling us to go bond them instead. And another part of that was we were going to increase the Medicaid reimbursement rate at nursing homes. Think of Birmingham Green over Manassas area, for example, and he nixed that as well. Not only does that cost $10 million to these nursing homes, they then lose the federal matching funds for it. So that's another $11 million. And because that's over a 2-year thing, this actually cost over $40 million. Yeah, it was a bad move. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. So, all right, I'm happy to take any questions. Also happy to announce I've now had 60 of my bills, all with bipartisan support, signed into law over my 8 years in office. So that's pretty cool.
I got one. It's more of a
Former
curve.
mayor. Yeah.
It's more of a curveball, though. With real IDs coming into play on the 7th, when I was driving by DMV this morning, I saw a line around the side. Do you have any stats on how well our state is doing with percentages already having it and how many still need to get them?
Sure. So, Madam Mayor, I would tell the council member, I don't have updated stats on that. What I will say is that Northern Virginia is actually leading the Commonwealth in terms of enrollment in Real ID. They're having significant enrollment issues in Southwest and areas that basically kind of just looked at this as being skeptical of government in general. Northern Virginia, where, I mean, everyone either knows someone in their family or has a friend who works as a civil servant. So we have a little less, trepidation about, doing a government thing. And this is a government thing. And so I don't have updated stats for you. I'd be happy to circle back and send them to you. I'll ask my chief of staff, Jesse, who's here today. We'll put in a request and we'll get some data and we'll send it over to you. And for those who need to know, it's no longer at Town Hall, although we used to have that service here, but you can just go off to Bullock Drive in Manassas, right off 66. Doesn't take long from here to get over there.
No? Well, thank you so much. It was really good seeing you.
All right, I'll have to see you at a farmer's market soon.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
now I'm going to go over to the Himalayan place down the street because they can make a good vegan option for dinner. It's great. And by the way, that's one's 10 out of 10. Would recommend again. So, all right, appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Prince William County Gainesville District Board of Supervisors.
I hear the funeral dirge coming. Evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Bob Weir, Gainesville District Supervisor. I've got good news, I got bad news, and I'm going to start with the good news because the bad news isn't very good. For those of you that were interested in the pedestrian improvements on Old Carolina, both north and south of town, next Tuesday night or Tuesday afternoon, we're going to be seeking the grant monies to extend the sidewalk and pedestrian improvements from Somerset to the Haymarket sidewalk. And as most of you or many of you know, The improvements on the north side of town are being, or will be under construction rather shortly from Heathcote down to the bridge. Unfortunately, those will be on the west side. We had to move them from the east side because of the way the county planned it. Fortunately, we were able to acquire the one parcel that was problematic in years past, which has made that allowable at this point in time. Second thing, some park improvements are coming, additional park improvements, Long Park and Kit Harpin. I'm going to take full credit for these because the Parks Department didn't do it. I've found proffer money that had been sitting in the cupboard for years, and we're paying for these out of proffer funds. So you should see ball field lights that are about 10 to 12 years overdue at Long Park sometime before the beginning of the summer. And you should see similar improvements up at Kit Harpin once we get over some electrical issues with Novec. Last part on the good news, there will be a CPA initiation next Tuesday to get rid of the industrial designation on a piece of property just west of town that was changed during the last comp plan process. 11th hour, 59th minute change by the former board chair. We're reverting it back to Parks and Open Space, and we will be eliminating the Heathcote extension to Antioch. Now the bad news. Despite the improvements coming to Old Carolina, we've got some more housing coming to Old Carolina. We've got 2 applications, one north of town, one south of town for several hundred more units. I met with one of the applicants' counsel and the builder this afternoon for the one south of town. I am not particularly amenable to the amount of traffic they want to squeeze on Old Carolina in that rather dangerous section between Somerset and 29 without any improvements. Unfortunately, we can't improve Route 29, or excuse me, Old Carolina between 29 and Somerset just because of the easements required to do it. We would literally have to take out people's front porches and run the roadbed, past their kitchen. The other piece of bad news, well, county budget, I'm sure you've all heard. It was essentially passed as adopted or as presented by the CXO, and everybody in town's bills are going up. And they're going up far more significantly than the average in the county. You can look from anywhere to $300 to $500, and some people just outside of town are looking at $1,000. I've got one neighborhood on Kit Harpin that's going up $800 a unit. It's going to hit hard in these times of, questionable economic conditions. We don't know what's going to happen. Whatever you think of Doge, we don't know the impacts of Doge. We don't know the impacts or the potential impacts of, the buyouts. We don't know how that's going to impact the housing market. As it stands right now, Prince William County is plateaued in population, despite MCOG's assertions that the county is going to continue to grow at this fantastic rate. It hasn't grown in the last 2 or 3 years. We are seeing outmigration in Fairfax and Arlington. We suspect that is going to hit us next, both as a result of changes within the federal government and in the private sector where more people are working from home and don't feel the need to live this close to the district because they don't have to go to the office anymore. They're simply operating from their home office. And personally, like me, they'd probably rather be sitting and looking over the lake and doing their work than sitting here in Prince William County. We are to some degree pushing them out. I would also mention that the assessments this year are a little bit tricky. While the assessments went up significantly on the residential homes, they went down precipitously on many commercial properties, thus increasing the burden or increasing the percentage of the real estate taxes paid by the residents of Prince William County. Potomac Mills Mall, for example, is at its lowest valuation ever by hundreds of millions of dollars. That has a significant impact. We have multiple data center cases in court where they're challenging the assessments. Things do not look good. How that's going to impact the county in future years, hard to say. Everybody questions, why are you raising my real estate taxes when you promised the data centers would bail us out and reduce our burden? Well, the problem is The data centers are giving hundreds of millions of dollars to the county, but the county budget is growing at a rate faster than the amount of additional revenue comes in from the data centers. Prince William County doesn't have a revenue problem. Prince William County has a spending problem. And until the residents of this county address it, you can look for your residential assessments and your residential tax bills to continue to skyrocket. If the market goes south, you're going to pay that penalty as well, just to maintain the status quo. Which brings me to the town. I've reviewed your budget and I see similar circumstances. I can draw a parallel from the town budget to the county budget. You're going to add a significant additional cost to the residents of the town. I think you need to pare it back. I think you need to be a little more conservative. I think you need to take into account the economic variations that we're likely to see in the next couple of months. And much like the county relying on, or county residents relying on data centers to reduce their tax bills at the county level, I think you need to remember what councils in the past promised the residents of this town when they built or when they approved Crossroads, that the revenue streams from that would reduce their tax bills. Hadn't happened. And don't get me started on the games that a lot of people play, tax rate versus actual tax. You're charged with delivering a budget, at least an initial budget, based on an equalized rate, or you have to at least publish the equalized rate. I didn't see that happen in the county this year, and I'm not sure it happened here. But that is a statutory mandate. Last but not least, with respect to the town particularly, the principal portion of your growth in real estate tax revenues should come from organic growth, new construction, upgrades. If you look at Crossroads Village and the townhouse units, last year they were assessed at about a quarter of their value that they are this year. That's because they're now fully built out. That's where your organic growth in your budget is in that type of construction and that type of upgrade. But they're going to get hit even harder than an existing resident because of the relative increase assessment versus rate. So they're going to get a double whammy from both the county and the town. You guys are welcome to stop by my office anytime, and I'll be more than happy to take any questions. I see a grin.
Okay, with the congestion that's going to come up with the build outs going on north and south of Old Carolina, are we going to see any piece of the proffers that are going to be presented there? You're looking at some good stress points in town. For instance, Washington and Jefferson Streets going to see this burden. You're going to see people starting to populate our parks, so we need park and recreation proffers. Is there any way we can get some of this from Prince William County to help supplement the added head count that we're going to be seeing crossing through town?
I wish it were that easy, and I'd like to say yes, but I can't. I will have to use Gainesville magisterial funding, which is rather limited in terms of transportation, and quite frankly, I'll have to use remaining proffer dollars to address that for parks and open space. There is nothing in the immediate area in the comprehensive or in the CIP from Prince William County. And there doesn't seem to be any indication of any willingness to spend on anything west of the 234 bypass. I'll give you an example of just how bad it is. The fire chief has put together a report on the areas of the county with the highest need for a new fire station or increased service. It should come as no surprise to anybody that the 3 stations most needed by location are all in the Gainesville district. Kid Harpin, if you're up on the north end of the county, forget it. You're going to be waiting a while. If you're off of Kid Harpin, you're going to be waiting a while. Those are the areas that need the fire stations most, and we're not getting them. The data center area, because of the potential for fire there and because of the number of drills, just got one. But the residents of the western Prince William County did not. I mean, if you sit on a particular establishment's porch, as I frequently do, and watch the traffic through town, More often than not, you will see a responding unit going westbound on 55. It's not Station 4. They're coming from Nokesville. If you can imagine that, that's a 20-minute trip, even with a fire truck with the sirens on. The 5 most necessary locations per the chief's report, 3 in Gainesville, 2 in Brentsville, but the next 3 that will be assuredly under construction or renovation are all on the east end. And from my reading of the CIP, the next 5 to 7 are. So we are not going to get any relief, yet at the same time, there were proposals to add several, I actually see tens of thousands of more residential units in western Prince William County. We have a priority issue. I can only fight so many battles, and I'm not winning that kind of thing. Bring me your concerns. I'll do what I can. I'll see what monies we can find. There are some grant opportunities. If you guys can't write the grants, I've got somebody who can. Please don't ask the county to do it, because then they contract it out and it drives me insane. And if you've got any other issues with the building departments, because I'm getting a lot of he said, she said from a variety of departments, I'm growing a little weary of it. But if you've got any direct issues impacting direct businesses or residents, please give me a call. I have a chief of staff who is relatively adept at dropping the hammer on someone's head over there. That's it? You're going to let me off that easy? I can go watch the hockey game?
Hey, all I want is money. Okay, how many?
We're about 4.1 million and 60%, 59% enrollment.
60%, that's pretty good. I was hoping we'd be up to 70, but 60 is really good.
By the way, school enrollment is dropping despite all the additional money we give them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this brings us to the public hearing. Kim, can you read the public notice into record, please?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Notice is hereby given that the mayor and council of the town of Haymarket will hold a public hearing on Monday, May 5th, 2025 at 7 p.m. in the Haymarket Town Hall located at 15000 Washington Street, Suite 100, Haymarket, Virginia, on the town of Haymarket's proposed budget for fiscal year 2025-2026, beginning July 1, 2025, ending June 30, 2026, and the proposed tax rate in support of the budget pursuant to Virginia Code Section 15.2-2506. The following is a synopsis of the proposed budget. The projected revenues total number is $4,526,152, and the projected expenditures is equal to that at $4,526,152. The budget is available on the town's website at townofhaymarket.org and for review at the town hall located at 15000 Washington Street between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. All meetings are open to the public. Handicap accommodations is available. This hearing will be open to the public, and the town council will permit all citizens of the town the right to attend and state their views thereon.
Before we take citizen comments, Town Manager Emily Crosby and Town Treasurer Roberto Gonzalez have a presentation on the fiscal year 26 budget.
Thank you, Mayor. For the sake of time and respecting our citizens' time who came out to speak tonight, I will go through this presentation, and as council has questions, we can discuss it during our budget work session on the agenda items, okay? If there's immediate questions that you feel would be pertinent to residents that are here tonight, please do stop me as needed. Okay, so for the FY 2026 budget highlights. So this year, staff has put together the budget, and we're specifically highlighting these targeted areas of financial accountability, continuing to provide responsible, transparent use of our taxpayer funds while still supporting our services and infrastructure within budget. Providing these essential services would include our 24/7 police department, our trash and recycling services, community events and promotions, and our efficient town administration staffing. Our long-term planning goals, we are continuing to show investments in infrastructure and our future-ready projects, as well as supporting sustainable town growth. We're also looking to highlight our revenue and expenditure management. We have continued to provide a balanced budget, and this one goes to continue to do the same. We're also ensuring our long-term financial health and our economic stability. This provides a brief snapshot of the town of Haymarket in comparison to Prince William County. All of the data was pulled from the 2022 population estimate and the 2023 census report, both of which are linked here in your presentation. So following our most recent census data, it actually showed that the town of Haymarket population decreased to 1,545 residents. Based on when this number came out and the growth that has occurred since, I would fully expect that this number would increase some in our next census data. You'll see the median age of the town of Haymarket is 38.2 years. That of Prince William is 36.7. Median household income is $174,000, while Prince William is $131,000. Those with a high school graduate degree or higher is 96.7, and the county is 89.6. Bachelor's or higher is 53.5. The county is 45.5. Again, the data is linked there for you. Some considerations that staff took while preparing the FY26 budget is maintaining the town real estate tax rate of 0.105 per $100 assessed value, addressing the increase in our newly contracted trash and refuse services, funding of 2 replacement vehicles for the police department, funding the 5-year capital improvement plan, proposing a 2.5% COLA and merit program for all employees of the town, addressing a 14.9% increase in the town's general liability insurance, addressing a 12% increase in the health insurance premiums, and continuing to provide professional services for residents and businesses. This is just a brief overview map of the town of Haymarket. Those areas highlighted in red are your neighborhoods that have HOAs. We do have other residential properties in the core of town along Jefferson and Fayette Street, Madison Street and Madison Court, and we have a newly finished neighborhood to the north of 66, Robinson Paradise. Town services and programs that we currently offer. We have our community park, our public safety services, community events, our farmers market, refuse and recycling collection, our town app, our communication outreach, crime prevention, pedestrian safety and traffic grants, and many more. If we listed them all, we would be here a while. For the process of presenting the FY26 budget, Roberto Gonzalez began work on this in December of 24. He was working through pulling data on what our actuals were from previous years, looking at trends, and going through our town audits. We had a proposed budget drafted in March, and we began our discussions at the Finance Committee level. And as requested and desired by council members, we did meet with several one-on-one to go over the proposed budget. And all of these numbers were based on the revenue projections from our previous years. And then we had continued discussions of distributing the proffer funds. I apologize that this table's a little bit small for our audience. It might be a little more clear on the TV back there, but this is our 5-year capital improvement plan. It does in the first column show the projects by name and a description of the areas within the major project that we want to complete other items. We have in the second column, we have our current fiscal year, and then the third column over would be next fiscal year. So we can go more in depth of, as council desires. Capital improvement plan set forth for FY26. We are looking to continue advancing our discussions on the community park as discussed and promised in our previous discussions at the council level regarding the demolition of the Harover House. We are fully prepared to continue moving forward with the RFP for design and hopefully thereafter go ahead and get an RFP for construction out there so that we can show our community that we hear them and we want to provide that service for them. We want to continue to improve our walkability and connectivity. This past year, we were able to complete one of our final connections in our sidewalk along the Town Park streetscape. We would like to look to providing repairs and enhancements on our other sidewalks that are in need of significant maintenance due to the bricks becoming loose in certain areas. We want to continue to expand our beautification efforts across all of our public spaces, specifically continuing our initiatives in the streetscape. Matt works very hard to make this space very beautiful, and we want to continue those efforts as it's been well received through our community. We want to continue supporting our police department and all of their needs, specifically the vehicle replacement plan that Chief has put forward for us. We want to continue advancing the town center site plan. We have this site plan ready to go. We would like to strongly encourage this RFP for construction and funding be tackled by this town council. Not only would this town center address issues here on site with stormwater, increased parking, appropriate curb and gutter, it would also put in the turn lane on Jefferson Street headed southbound. This would be a right-hand only turn lane, but it could work to help alleviate some of the traffic we see. It won't alleviate everything, but it'll do a significant portion. We also, in this site plan, will have the final connection of an appropriate sidewalk up to the bridge sidewalk. And then as Mr. Weir, Supervisor Weir mentioned here, that the sidewalk on the west side and the county portion would be complete. That would then be a finalized pedestrian connectivity all the way up to Heathcote. We want to do all of this while maintaining the lower taxes and minimizing the need to consider future tax increases. Our methodology, as previously discussed, was reviewing our trends, looking at our audited budgets of years past, and going forward with projections. Again, this table is a little small. I apologize for that, but this is our proposed FY26 budget revenues. And again, this is our proposed revenues in a visual graphic format. Proposed expenditures. Proposed expenditures in a pie chart. And here's our revenue growth from 2018 through 2025. One thing I would like to call out is our current budgeted FY 2025. That's the second from the last column. This is the number, this is the amounts that were budgeted. We do fully expect to come in higher than the budgeted amount. We do fully expect that these numbers will be higher than the actuals of FY 2024, even though the current graphical representation of that shows it is lower. So please keep that in mind when you're looking at this data. I will say one item to call to note here, in the gray boxes on the screen, it's the, I would say, brownish one. Let's have a pointer. The second from the top section there, the meals tax, we are continuing to show significant growth of that tax year after year. And that is in part to some of the newer restaurants, as well as the success of our existing restaurants and meals tax paying businesses. Here is a graphical representation of the history of real estate tax assessments and tax rates for the town and the county. So Prince William County sets the town tax assessments, and that is all data that we receive from the county when we go to plan our budget. So the top line that is graphed out here is the Prince William County tax rate. The bottom line is the town tax rate, and the bars are the town assessments year after year. And you will see that increase that Supervisor Weir spoke of when it comes to the assessments. On this next slide, I'm going to pass it over to Roberto to walk us through this one.
Council and audience, the next page is the proposed town tax rate. Back last month when we did the real estate public hearing, we did talk about this as we were asked to show the difference on the equalized rates as you always have in the past. Also throwing in scenarios specifically what a 6% increase versus the current by keeping the 0.105 would show a revenue increase of 13.6. In this sheet, you will see what the breakdown would be if for a 10.3%, 6%, and a 0.6. And then the last scenario would be something that we did last year, which is taking the equalized rate and including and considering the CPI, which is the inflation rate. These are the scenarios we've discussed throughout our finance and as well as during our work sessions. So you guys can see the scenarios, what it would look like, the difference. The only other thing on this is spoken at last month's meeting as well, is just kind of showing the average increase estimates on the single family homes and the townhomes. As Supervisor Weir being here in finance, we had the discussions about the newer homes with the liaisons, how that does differ. But overall, this is what the average would be then for the long existing homes here.
This next table here is the proposed tax rates to include the tax rates of all of our business, professional, and occupational license taxes, utility taxes, cigarette tax, personal property, etc. This next table shows all of the town's property assets. So just a refresher for everyone here, we have our museum property, Caboose, Town Hall, Copper Cricket Building, Cupcake Heaven Building, Washington Street Realty, and our community park structures and playground. And this is provided through Virginia Risk Management. And then lastly here, you have the FY 2026 proposed balanced budget. Happy to take any immediate questions from council, or at this time, if there are no questions, we can open it up to our citizens who are here tonight to speak on the proposed budget. I'm going to leave this slide up, but if during any point you guys want me to go back during the discussion or remarks, please let me know.
So with no questions from here, we would like to open the floor for citizens' comments on the proposed amendments.
Got my citizen hat on now, not my supervisor hat. And first off, the census data is wrong. Census Department has admitted that the tracts were misapplied, so our data is incorrect for that year, which screws us up in a number of ways, but the Census Department's not ready to do anything about it and probably won't until the next census. I called the county budget an abomination. I won't go quite that far with this one. But I think a couple of things need to be pointed out. Town spent a lot of CARES Act money and a lot of ARPA money over the last couple of years, and it kind of skewed the budget. But if you go back to FY 24, your debt service now is half of what it was. You've reduced your debt service by roughly $75,000, give or take. And despite that decrease, your budget has continued to rise, despite the ARPA and CARES Act funding, your budget has continued to rise, and now you're proposing a 13.6% increase. It's on top of the increase that the town residents are paying the county, and it's on top of the higher electric bills they're going to be paying come July, average $21 a month this year, with an additional increase next year. Dominion's already gotten the approval for that. The residents are getting squeezed on all ends. It's also highly likely that however the tariff war ends up, used vehicle prices will rise. Used vehicle assessments will rise. Now, this doesn't impact the town because we don't charge a personal property tax, or we charge a zero tax, but it's an increased amount of expenditure by the residents of the town to the county. They're literally getting squeezed on every side. And then I think the part that really annoys me most, and I can speak to this historically, is that regardless of how much or how little you raise the rate this year, and you budget more money, every bloody year, just like the county, you run a significant surplus. So if you're going to continue down this route with a 13.6% increase, I hope you guys at least have the civility to return some of the bonus that there's some of the budget surplus at the end of the year, because I'm sure you're going to have it. You guys need to take a long, hard budget look at some of the line items on that budget, and you can easily find what is a relatively minor amount of funding required to reduce the rate down to at least an equalized rate. It's not that hard. You guys know I know what I'm talking about. Thank you.
All right, I will now close the public hearing. Which brings us to the regular meeting and to citizens' time. So is there anyone wishing to address the council?
Hi, good evening, Mayor, council members, and fellow resident. My name is Mohammed Qasim. I live here in Haymarket in 15082 Stepping Stone. I've submitted a special use permit. We'll be talking about that a bit later in the agenda, but I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about it a little. I've submitted this special use permit to renting a space in the boundaries of town of Haymarket, and establish a place of worship for Muslim community. And over the past several months, to be 8 exactly, but who's counting? We've been discussing several things. And I actually wanted to just quickly remind myself and everyone on what we are truly trying to accomplish over here. And for that is, some of that may have been lost in the discussion that we've been having so far. So today, the Muslim community in Haymarket does not have a place of worship, and this is where we started with. Some point in our lives, apparently, I'll say most of us sought to some spiritual guidance, and just imagine for a moment that if you did not have a place to turn to at the time you need it the most. So this is where pretty much we are standing at. Over the past several months, together with the town council staff, the landlord at the QB Park, and the Muslim community, we have thoughtfully addressed a lot of concerns which may arise probably while operating the Islamic Center. And there is just one item that still stays unaddressed, and that is requirement of submitting a site plan after 1 year of SUP approval. I have respectfully asked the town staff to consider a waiver for this requirement, and let's see what we will achieve with and without a site plan. A site plan clause is only triggered when you apply for a special use permit. And we have been asked to do that. We are not making any changes to the site as we speak. And if we are asked to provide a site plan, it's as good as denying the SUP because that will impose a financial burden on us, which is far beyond the means of a donation-oriented organization. Alternatively, if we do not establish an Islamic center in the said space, I'm sure someone else is going to occupy that. And let's say if a fitness center goes in there and they occupy that space, as per the town staff, today the space in its as-is condition can obtain an occupancy permit for 49 people. I go in there, I start a yoga class with 40 participants. That's gonna keep the same parking load as we're thinking. It's gonna keep the same traffic load as we are thinking in terms of Islamic center. Pretty much everything else stays same, but no requirement for a site plan. In both these scenarios, the one thing that changes is if we go with the second scenario, we do not have a place of worship for the Muslim community over here. Throughout this process, I've been reminded multiple times that Town Council has a right to impose any conditions while approving this SUP. Tonight, I would urge the Town Council to put a condition on approval of this SUP that a site plan will not be required. I think I'm gonna close this with a thought that think of the children, 10, 12, or 15 years old, growing without stepping foot inside a place of worship. I've met many of these in a Muslim community. And together tonight, we have a chance to change that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yeah, I did. I turned it on. I just need to talk louder. All right, so we will now consider the consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull anything off of the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull the police report, please.
Okay. Ken, is there anything you'd like to pull?
No, I'm good.
Okay, and Justin, you're good?
I'm okay.
All right. So may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda minus the police report?
I move to accept the consent agenda A 1 through 4, B 1, 2, 4, and 5, and C 1 through 5.
I second it.
Wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we will move on to the pulled reports.
Good evening, Chief.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Looking at page 44, I see 2025 calls for service have been trending down,
Yes, sir.
which is good.
It's always a good thing.
It's good.
You always want to see that one go down.
Yes.
That's
The
good
only
news,
thing-
no matter how you look at it.
The only thing is, I don't know how long we've been tracking this data, but if we have been tracking it for 2023, 2024, similar to how we've been doing it for the other data points, can we introduce prior year data to the same calls for service as well as 2025 business checks and foot
Yes, sir.
patrols?
We used to do that, but we changed our data points just a little bit. So I showed the new graph, but what I'll do is introduce the old graph again and then collect the new data points with it. But you might see some altering changes in different aspects of it, but it'll give you the view that you're looking for. I can add that to it. And a matter of fact, I'll pick that up and get an email to you sometime soon so you can take a look at it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. But we've been tracking that data for at least 3 years. So you got plenty of data to look at.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have.
That's all you had?
Yep.
All right, wonderful.
Yeah,
So
it was simple.
may I get a motion to approve the pulled report? Nope, sorry, I
Okay.
apologize.
Yeah, I just wanted to show a result from these graphs, which I think is great. If you look at the calls for service, they've been going down and the business checks are going up. What you're actually seeing here is showing our presence out there in the public definitely deters crime within this town. That is a awesome mark. I really like these two charts.
Yes, sir. You are 100% correct in what you're saying there. So We try to keep a high presence out there, and with, council's approval from last year of getting those two positions, I think you can already see an alternative just in the last 4 months, looking at that data that we've been fully staffed on with those two new positions, is that continuing trend down and that proactive enforcement level. And we're going to be introducing some new patrol patterns I'll go over with you in the near future that's going to enhance that even further, that Sergeant Burgoon and Jake Davis have been putting together as far as business zones and residential zones. So.
Thank you. That's it.
Is
Thank
that it?
you.
No, thank you. All right. May I get a motion to approve the pooled report, please?
Okay, I move that we approve consent agenda item B3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Not anybody opposed? All right, so now we're going to move on to the agenda items. So the first item is the consideration of SUP number 2024-002. The staff report starts on page 70 of our packet. Staff, do we have any updates before we consider the SUP?
Yes, one moment while I set my papers down. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and audience. The main updates I want to provide first, I first appreciate the applicant coming up during citizens' time as well to speak to the council prior to this. I wanted to direct council to packet page 72 before we go into this. I've compiled a timeline, as was mentioned earlier, related to the inquiry about this site, the application for the special use permit itself, and then the procedure as follows and the timeline of that. But I wanted to start by reading out again the definition of public assembly per the zoning ordinance, which facilitated the entire review process for this special use permit application. This is the second paragraph of packet page 72 in the staff report for SUP 2024-002. Per the zoning ordinance, public assembly is defined as facilities that accommodate public assembly for sports, amusements, or entertainment purposes. Typical uses include auditoriums, sports stadiums, convention facilities, religious and incidental sales, and exhibition facilities. It's a very broad range of uses that fall under that definition of public assembly. As we discussed in the work session last week, public assembly is only a by right use in the town in the transition commercial zone, which I don't have a map on me, but it falls off of Washington Street and then the northwestern part of St. Paul Drive. It's about 4 to 5 addresses within that where by right approval for public assembly is associated. On September 6, 2024, when I first received inquiry about the use of tenant spaces for religious assembly for this purpose as applied for, the 2 tenant spaces that were looked at were 15111 Washington Street, also known as the Winterham property, and then 14600 Washington Street, which is what we're reviewing now as the QBE building. As we met mid-September and discussed by right and special use permit application options, I sent on the 18th options for transition commercial zones, and also explained too that it would incur the cost of potentially redeveloping or causing adaptive reuse of the sites there as they're older historic structures compared to the tenant space. When I received the application for this SUP, November 4th, 2024, as signed on the permit application, it was for 14600 Washington Street, therefore triggering the need for the SUP review. Timeline wise, in terms of procedural hearings and or review of this application by Planning Commission and Town Council, starts with the December 10th Planning Commission public hearing. It goes to a January 14th recommendation for approval with conditions by the Planning Commission. It then goes to a March 3rd public hearing by the Town Council with comment provided there. We then go to our March 24th work session where the first discussion of the site plan per section 58-4.30A as required in the site, the zoning ordinance is discussed. We went in depth on that in March 24th. On April 7th, that meeting day for the regular meeting, the applicant requested to defer the application to the work session so we could further discuss, go in depth on that section of the zoning ordinance for the site plan. and which we did last week in the April 28th work session. We've approached May. Procedurally, we're looking at a 5-month review timeline. In my observation, I believe this is a normal review procedural timeline for this type of special use permit. And as defined with public assembly, this would be the type of timeline and procedural review that would go for any sort of public assembly that would be applied for in these tenant spaces in a B1 zoning district. With that in mind, I wanted now, since then as well, I also wanted to acknowledge that the applicant has worked very diligently to ensure that all of the requirements or asks of the Planning Commission and Council have been adequately met, which includes the striping of the lot at 14600 Washington Street, which includes wayfinding, which they have sent to me as of this morning, which I have as the provided extra page detailing wayfinding for one-way entry and exit points. They've worked very hard to do what council is required of them. And with that in mind, I just wanted to generally go through finally the staff report again as it stands currently. On packet page 73, I first mentioned the need for the site plan to be submitted within a year of approval of the special use permit. And that'll be a common theme throughout the rest of the staff report as we go through. Additionally, at the time, I asked the applicant to, throughout this review process, I asked the applicant to provide the number of patrons that they expected to show up to the worship services. Additionally, how many vehicles would show up and what that schedule looked like, which they dutifully provided to me and to council for review. With that in mind, a traffic study had not been provided at the time for the general site. As we go to packet page 72, 73, we're going into matters to be considered in application review per section 58-4.28 of the zoning ordinance, which would be the nature of proposed use, including factors such as traffic, noise, light, hours of operation, and number of employees involved. As we've discussed before, the applicant has met everything the council asked of them regarding traffic mitigation, which they can contract out with Haymarket Police Department if available, or Prince William County Police Department. Additionally, as you've seen here, the wayfinding that's provided on this insert that you all have shows one-way signs pointing inward to the main entry point onto the site. One-way signage continuing that direction with also a do not enter sign if you're facing Washington Street. And additionally, one-way exit point signs and do not enter signs at the exit of the site. So with that in mind, those are the main concerns that have been resolved as of traffic, noise, hours of operation, number of employees involved on site. With that in mind, the site plan submission requirement in section 58-4.30A of the zoning ordinance can help mitigate still existing entry and exit point conflicts on the site and other traffic issues. This will be mitigated by bringing it into VDOT standards through that site plan review process. Going to the next segment, the character of the existing area, including existing structures and structures under construction, public facilities, and public facilities under construction. As we discussed the hours of operation, there are other religious assemblies down the street. Other tenant spaces have somewhat overlapping hours, but the information provided to council has shown that there is optimal meshing of schedules on site that wouldn't disrupt the other businesses completely. Going into item 3, the area's designation on the town's comprehensive plan and relevant text provisions of the plan, which is found on packet page 74. As I've mentioned before as well, this fits with previous uses that have existed along Washington Street, as well as general commerce use and community use around the area. So it still fits with the comprehensive plan as well and does not alter the existing sense of place at the property and at the adjacent properties as well. Regarding minimum off-street parking area required and the amount of space needed for the loading and unloading of trucks, as we discussed in depth in the work session last week, the parking count they have tabulated is 168 for all the existing tenants, including the applicant. That leaves us with, per our count on town staff's end, there's 191 spaces that were striped that can be utilized for parking. That leaves us with a surplus of 23 spaces on site. In our opinion, that satisfies the need to show council that the site can be adequately parked as existing. With that being said, as per council requested, I followed up with the fire marshal, Chief Smolsky. We weren't able to meet in the time that between the work session and now. We tried to coordinate schedules. He wasn't able to find time to meet. The main days we were looking at Thursday, Friday, Monday, today. With that in mind, though, we were really only looking at that one aisle on the rear of the property with those 3 spaces by the loading bay. You cut those 3 spaces, we're still at 191 spots, still very adequate parking available for the tenant use and also the other tenants to use the site. And the final 2, whether the public health, safety, and welfare will be preserved, any reasonable conditions necessary for such preservation. We've talked about traffic increases. The applicant's shown council and staff that the site can be adequately parked, the site can be adequately managed via volunteer traffic management and also contracting with police departments. Going to any other factors relating to the purposes of zoning that the Planning Commission and/or Haymarket Town Council, in this case, and its legislative discretion shall consider as relevant. It really comes back down to that requirement of section 58-4.30, special use permit general provisions. With that in mind, in consultation with the zoning administrator, we also looked at Article 3 of the zoning ordinance, which is general review procedure. I just wanted to read part of that section as well. This is section 58-3.6 of the zoning ordinance. Before a building permit shall be issued or construction commenced on any permitted use or a permit issued for a new use or a change of use, a site plan prepared in accordance with this chapter shall be submitted for review. If the change of use does not require additional parking, change in ingress or egress, or other exterior modifications, then the site plan requirement may be waived at the discretion of the zoning administrator. This goes for by right uses as well, but in this case, we're reviewing a special use application. As we've talked about in discussion with Emily Karazi, zoning administrator, we saw that it's been shown that the site can be parked. However, we still have concerns with ingress, egress, or entry, exit onto the site itself. So in that consultation, we've determined that a site plan submitted per the special use permit requirement in section 58-4 of the zoning ordinance will answer a lot of council's previous questions and concerns and alleviate any potential future issues on site that would involve customers and other tenants entering and exiting the site. And with that in mind, we still recommend approval tonight by the council with conditions involving, as we discussed before, occupancy, proof of that with occupancy card, an occupancy permit, as well as submitting a site plan within 1 year of the approval of the SCP, as well as the submission of a traffic study that coincides with the site plan to fulfill any outstanding zoning ordinance requirements. One clarification I'd like to make before I turn the time back over to council is that with this site plan submission, to directly quote the ordinance, the applicant shall have 1 year to submit site or subdivision plans for the approved use and shall occupy the site and commence the use within 5 years of approval of the site plan. It's our determination as well, in working together, that that means that the use will commence after the site plan is submitted and all site improvements are made. So with that in mind, within our recommendation of approval, there is the condition to still include that site plan. I'd like to turn the time back over to council where they can invite the applicant back up to answer any other questions or ask staff any follow-up clarification questions.
Thank you, Thomas. Does anyone have any questions?
What was the staff's recommendations for the TIA, traffic impact studies?
The main recommendation is to include that as a condition of approval. Additionally, with every site plan review by right and SCP, there is an ITE study which shows general traffic patterns on site. I think if we include this as a condition of the approval, it will still ensure that the traffic is accounted for on site and any potential issues that may arise with traffic volume in the review process can be alleviated through our town review.
You know, I kind of see a traffic study in here indirectly. The occupancy certificate of 100 people, the derivatives of how many cars park with 100 people, the schedule that they showed in their critical impacting times of like Ramadan, how many sessions they have. It seems like we can kind of calculate the cars that'll be coming and going. Right now, it looks like it would be like in their heavier period of Ramadan, if there's like 5 wash-up sessions, so you'd probably see a continuous increase of maybe about 25 cars, which I don't think is too impactful. And I think, maybe we could waive the traffic study under the conditions that we see if they do follow the patterns of the COA and the occupancy certificate and all that stuff, by maybe making this a revisit SUP, put a condition on it to be the SUP would have to be revisited every year, kind of like we did with the daycare that St. Paul's had when we didn't know what kind of traffic they were going to be circulating, picking up the kids and dropping them off on Payne Lane and the impact of Payne Lane. But that's one thing that I see. There is no site plan for this property. This property in the past, we've been over backwards for them, making sure that we got it rezoned to B2, that we got an extension from the Prince William County so that we take over the full property, and things just ended up getting dropped. There's rumor that there's looking for a sale on this property. I think we need to baseline the site before it gets any further. So I do like that trigger, and I would like to keep that in here.
Justin, do you
Go ahead.
Regarding the traffic study, right? I would like to think that the study would need to consider traffic for the entire site as opposed to just the proposed use. Otherwise, as you indicated, right, it's not going to give us a good idea in terms of what what we'll be looking at in totality, right? But I'm not sure if there's any clarification in terms of whether or not the study should be just solely based on the additional traffic that's going to be introduced in relation to the use, or if it needs to consider traffic to and from the entire site. I don't know if the staff has the answers to that.
Related to the applicant first, I'd like to once again commend them for submitting a very accurate tabulation of what their expected attendance will be. And even on packet page 91 of the staff report or of the agenda, there's even 5-year projections estimating what the traffic will be. So I think it's very accounted for that specific tenant use on that end. As I mentioned before too, every site plan that's reviewed has a general peak hour and also general off-hour daily traffic count, which would then account for the use of the entire site. It's been done for Crossroads and each additional property that's been added to Crossroads, just as a more recent example that we have been reviewing on our end, on town staff's end. With that in mind, I think with the submission of a site plan and the additional condition of ensuring that that traffic study is present, at least in the site plan, I think all traffic on site will be accounted for through this process.
Did that answer?
No. So Thomas, what you're saying is if we don't put a condition of a traffic study, if we do decide to approve this SCP, right? If I'm not mistaken, what you're saying is that type of study will be included whenever they submit a site plan?
Yes.
Okay. And if there is some sort of adverse impact to traffic as part of that study during the site plan review process, then we can ask them to mitigate the adverse impact at that time prior to moving forward. Is that the case?
Yes, there will also be an opportunity when it's in review with the outside agencies, specifically with VDOT. We will be looking at the entry exit point of how the traffic is coming onto and leaving the site. And so you'll have an opportunity at that phase, or staff and planning commission will have the opportunity at that phase to have those further discussions, ensure that your entry exit points can help mitigate some of the flow issues getting on the site, the confusion that's currently on the site of which exit to use, the one-way traffic patterns. So some of those current issues we're seeing day to day will start to be mitigated through the analysis of this site plan.
Now, is traffic study and TIA, are they synonymous or are they?
Not necessarily.
Not
So
necessarily, okay.
a TIA, your traffic impact analysis, the way our zoning ordinance is written, it's a traffic study done by an engineer, surveyor, or other qualified professional as deemed appropriate by your zoning administrator. And so I do thank you for bringing that up. That is something that everybody should take note of, that if they hire a traffic engineer to do a traffic study, that is fine. They can hire a surveyor to do as such.
Go ahead, Justin. So for this site, it's a religious assembly within an existing leased tenant space. They've done extensive job and with getting the parking spots and getting everything. If it wasn't for them, I don't think a lot of this parking lot would have been striped or gone through a lot of the conditions that it's gone through. This is a low intensity kind of commercial residential area. I think it aligns with our town comprehensive plan. The only thing I would want or ask for is that we do have some kind of, when we do approve this, if it does have some kind of stipulation or condition for kind of the fire lanes, egress, and that would help, I think, for the safety aspect of it.
Definitely. One quick comment, if I may, one quick comment I'll have on that, as we discussed with site plan review, this isn't the site plan. If this is approved, when the site plan is submitted, it will go to those outside agencies. VDOT, Prince William County Fire Marshal, IC are the two entities that will ensure that that type of safety measure is accounted for and placed onto the site.
Yeah, if we could get those, that would be perfect. Alexander, you had something?
So Thomas, and again, I would like to do things according to our requirements, our ordinance and so forth, right? So again, to both of you and Emily, the requirement normally in relation to SCP is there needs to be a site plan that needs to be provided, submitted within 1 year, right? As well as there needs to be a traffic study. Is that correct? That is the requirement.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We good? All right. Are we ready to make a decision on the SUP?
Mayor, if I may, I have a motion.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Real quick, can you pull your microphone just a little bit closer? Yes, thank you.
Sure. All right, I move the Haymarket Town Council approve to adopt resolution number 2025-005, a resolution to approve SCP 2024-002.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Yes, I need.
Yeah.
I have a
Read the
motion.
resolution.
Okay, yes. Whereas the Code of Virginia empowers the Haymarket Town Council to review land use applications to ensure the health, safety, and general welfare of the public, and whereas the town has adopted a zoning ordinance codified as Article 1 through 11 of Chapter 58 of the Town Code of Ordinance for the purpose of promoting the health, safety, and general welfare of the public, and of further accomplishing the objectives of Code of Virginia 15.2-2200 and 15.2-2283. And whereas the Code of Virginia provides that zoning ordinance may include provisions for granting of special exceptions, and the governing body of any city, county, or town
may reserve unto itself the right to issue such special exceptions, and whereas the Supreme Court of Virginia has consistently held that the decision of the legislative body when framing its zoning ordinance to place certain uses in the special exception or conditional use category is a legislative action. Board of Supervisors of Fairfax County versus the Southland Corporation, 224 VA 514297 S.E.2D 718, 1982. And whereas the Haymarket Town Council has reviewed SCP 2024-002 for public assembly use at 14600 Washington Street, Suite 160, referred to hereafter as the application. And whereas the applicant has met the requirements of Article 1 through 11 of Chapter 58 of Town Code of Ordinance, and whereas the Haymarket Town Council finds that public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice weigh in favor of approval of the application, and whereas the Town Council may act in accordance with Section 58-4-29 of the Town Code of Ordinance to attach reasonable conditions, including an expiration date to a special use permit approval with or without the applicant's consent, and whereas in accordance with Section 58-3.2D1E, the special use application will require a traffic study prepared by an engineer, surveyor, or other accepted professional as deemed by the zoning administrator, and whereas the Town Council attaches a condition that requires the applicant to provide the occupancy card for the tenant space once obtained from the Prince William County Building Department, and whereas the Town Council attaches a condition that requires the applicant to provide occupancy permit for the tenant space once issued by the Prince William County Building Department, and whereas the Town Council attaches a condition that requires the applicant to provide traffic study prepared by an engineer, surveyor, or other professional as deemed by the zoning administrator, and to provide all necessary traffic impact mitigation measures as deemed by the town during the site plan approval process. And whereas the Town Council attaches a condition that requires the applicant to submit a site plan for the approved use within 1 year of the approval of SCP 2024-002, and to obtain site plan approval prior to commencing the public assembly use of the site in accordance with Section 58-4.30 of the Town Code of Ordinance. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Haymarket Town Council that the Town Council approve SCP number 2024-002 for public assembly use at 14600 Washington Street, Suite 160, with the aforementioned conditions.
So I have a motion.
That
There's
is
a
your
motion.
motion. You need a second.
There's a
And-
motion
and
on
need
the
a
floor. Is
second.
there a
So second.
second?
Roll call
Okay,
vote.
is it open for discussion?
It is open for discussion.
I would like to add to it that this go through a yearly period review and that the approval is for the yearly period. If that could be a friendly amendment, if you guys agree on it. And until we can always lock it in to permanent once we see how this works over the next year or two.
Okay. So how do we amend that?
Councilmember Baker, you seconded the motion. Are you agreeable to the amended motion?
Yes.
Councilmember Bianna, you made the original motion. Are you agreeable to the amended motion?
I am.
I'd like to get that down in writing, so can we get that, can we take a pause to get that down?
Sure.
So if you could put something together that's legit, you know what I'm understanding, what the understanding is, okay.
Does that mean I have to reread everything?
I think that's what we're enjoying. We need recess.
Maybe 5 minutes.
Go into brief recess for 5 minutes. Go ahead, Mayor.
All right, we are back. Alon, could you read that for me, please?
Sure, Mayor. To be clear, this is an addition to the resolution that was just read by Councilman Biene. So the addition reads, whereas town council attaches a condition that requires an annual review of the conditionally approved special use permit to be reviewed annually during the May regular council meeting.
Councilmember Biene, do you agree to that amended motion? Because you made the motion originally.
I do.
And Councilmember Baker, do you agree to the second motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then roll call vote?
Is there any other discussion on the
Roll call.
Yeah, it's a resolution. So yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Larson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Baker, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Biene, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to go to the next item on the agenda for consideration, and that is the adopting of policies and procedures and code of ethics. The clean copy begins on page 143 of the packet. Kim, do you have any additional edits?
The only thing I added was from last week, Vice Mayor Gallagher asked that the method of voting when we decide to switch over to electronic voting, that would be added to the policy and procedures. That's the only thing I've added since the work session.
Okay.
On the code of ethics, I've not gotten any edits from council on the code of ethics, so I don't know if you want to continue to table this item until you have a full council to discuss the code of ethics and then come back, or if you're ready to vote on such, or if you would like me to provide other jurisdictions' code of ethics for you to consider before you proceed.
Emily?
I was just going to state, at our last meeting, Councilmember Pasanello had requested that we have this policy procedure discussion at the work session, so that all of council had additional time with the red line version as well.
Yep. So I do remember that. So we're all in agreement.
Yes.
So I move to table this until the work session.
And that work session date, just a friendly reminder, is May 27th. It's a Tuesday after Memorial Day. Just a friendly reminder for everyone.
I was going to say, we have a motion.
You have to second it? I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Any discussion? Cool.
No? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so our next item is the Crisis Response Center Memorandum of Understanding. We're currently on page 177 of our packet. Chief Seibert?
Madam Mayor, thank you. I'll be as brief as I can. This is our draft MOU, which several departments are looking to enter into with the Crisis Response Center, or Crisis Receiving Center. Just the context of that, they already have some centers up and running, mainly in Fairfax. They're supported and funded by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, community mental health block grants, and a vast array of different funding sources. And what they do, they're entitled to do so by state statute, is provide a crisis center for those that are either under an ECO and will more than likely become a TDO, an emergency custody order, or temporary detention order for people losing mental health crisis. As you know, over the past 3 to 4 years, we've had several incidences, and I say for us, several instances, in a couple of 3 a year, to where we either get an ECO or we have an ECO on a subject, and then we set with them. We have to set with them until they're received into a hospital or a TDO is issued, and then they can find a hospital, which sometimes takes 3 to 4 days. In some cases with juveniles, it's even longer. And so what this center does is alleviate the strain on police services, because in instances like these, fortunately, we live in a small town where we don't have a lot of these instances, but Prince William pretty much keeps 3 or 4 people at the hospital 24/7, 7 days a week. So it really is a strain on police services around the country, not just here. The good news about this draft MOU and entering into an MOU with Connections Health is that they don't ask for anything for us. They just spell out what they need. Now, they will not receive an individual who is they perceive as violent or would cause them issues. We would still have to set with that individual until a TDO is issued, and then ultimately a bid space is found somewhere in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And of course, a lot of times when bid space is found, it is 3, 4, or 5 hours away. Now, we will still have to transport the individual. They did not take care of transportation. There is some other outlets that sometimes we can seek for that and other remedies, but that would still be up to us to serve the TDO and get the person to their bid space. But ultimately, it would keep an officer back on the street 3, 4, 5 days, depending on how long it takes them to find the bid space. So the draft MOU is there for council's perusal. Truthfully, I see nothing in it that would worry me or concern me. It's really only good news. But I did want to bring it to council's attention before I entered into an agreement with Connections Health, such as our sheriff's offices and police departments in the area. You can see on the front page right now who all is looking to enter into the agreements. That's kind of the context behind it. The MOU stands on its face. I have been involved in the MOU process with them. It wasn't just a piece of paper that they pushed to me and said, try to sell it. They took back my takebacks and my changes and alterations that I thought should be in there, along with any other CEO of a department as well. And this is the working document they want to move forward with entering into later this month. So I'm looking for council feedback or any concerns or questions that they might have about entering into this MOU.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah. Chief, you mentioned you have to sit with them. Is there like a time amount of what that means?
Well, sir, the 72 hours is what an ECO is good for.
72, okay.
I'm sorry. Yep. Yeah, 72 hours. Sorry. There's been a lot of time changes over the last few years. 72 hours. And then now, if we're unable at that point, and even after a TDO is issued, if we're unable to find a bid space, a TDO is good for 72 hours as well. If there's not a bid space available that behavioral services cannot find, we either street them, in other words, just let them go, or they can reissue a new ECO. But TDO, ultimately, they can do the same thing. So it's like a never-ending process, providing that the healthcare providers can make it work. There's been instances as close as Strasburg, I know the chief there personally, and Clark County, where they've actually went 9 days and still could not find a bid space and ended up streeting the person who had been in a mental health crisis or was still currently in a mental health crisis. There's just nothing you can do at that time, but it's a 24/7 thing. Once we pick them up on the ECO, they're ours. Once a TDO is issued, they're still ours until a bid space can be found. So it's our problem, just like if they live in Prince William or Manassas, it's their problem as well. So now, again, if the person is a violent individual, they're not going to take them. They don't have the facilities or the personnel equipped to deal with that. So we would still have to in certain circumstances.
Okay, I was just thinking about how much strain that's going to put on you guys, and
well, sir, in the past,
receiving those.
Unfortunately, what we've had to do in some circumstances, because you got pretty much everybody who's here is on a shift, and so you can't take somebody that's just off of a shift, put them working, because their shift is ultimately going to come on. So basically, nobody gets a break. And there's been times where we had to actually depend on Prince William County to cover the town while we sat with the individual, because that's pretty much all we had. We don't want to do that, but obviously that person is our responsibility. That's not something we can just let go. And this does alleviate that issue. There's already a CTAC center that is in operation, but they only stay open until midnight. And it becomes kind of counterproductive to drop somebody off at, say, 6 or 7 p.m. just to go reset with them at midnight. And that's at Manassas. So now our person would be there without support. When we're over here, our officer that's working can at least go over there, provide them with a break, provide them with a meal break, or whatever they need. So CTAC, we haven't really been able to use much because it's really counterproductive for us. This is a model that would be very productive for us. So unless the person is violent or becomes violent while they're there, we can just move them off to there. Once they find the bid space, we come and serve the TDO, transport them to where they need to go, and it's good to go.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Alex, do you have anything? No?
Yeah, I see, we're, like you said, we're responsible for transport, but do they have a facility where we just drop them off and they are supervised while we can leave, our officers can get back to regular office? Is that what this does?
That is what this does. They will take care of the individual unless they become violent. They will take care of the individual until the TDO is issued and bid space is found. And then once the bid space is found, it becomes our problem for transportation again, and we would transport them to that facility and then leave them there. And so it would just be the time that we have to transport. That would be the only thing that would be incumbent upon the officers at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. So anything additional you need from us?
I could say a blessing, but I just wanted to address any concerns. I think it's the right thing to do. It's a smart thing to do, and it doesn't cost us anything. So that's always a good thing when you can keep officers on the street and not have to pay to do that. And it provides the people in need, the people in crisis, with a better service than somebody with a badge standing over them. Personally, I don't think it's the right thing to do, but that's what we're with. That's what we have to do. So I'd rather them be looking at a healthcare provider than a police officer. The perception is that the police is standing there, that the person did something wrong. And a person in crisis or mental crisis didn't do anything wrong. So it takes away that stigma as well. So I think it's good for the patient. It's good for us. It's good for the community. So you can proceed to vote on it, or you can proceed just to say, hey, chief, move forward. Or you can say you don't like something in the MOU and you'd like to have it changed. I still got a few days that I can fix things on this.
Okay.
But I'll leave that up to you.
Okay. Did anybody see anything that they wanted changed or made note?
Chief, is it possible to give us a day or two?
Sure.
And if you don't hear from us, is basically, I would say.
Absolutely. That's no problem with me, Madam Mayor. Obviously, we can change on the fly. And if it would be a concern for one of you, I'm sure it would be a concern for all of you.
Yeah.
And we'll just get it addressed and move forward.
Okay.
Yep. So I'm assuming that, without objection, we'll have you move forward. When it comes to signature, then that would come up to a meeting for a vote,
Vote.
and a full council signature.
Are we all in alignment? Okay.
Okay, but just let me know. I think we can do redrafts up until May 9th.
Okay.
So we got a few more days.
So any emails, questions, concerns, get with by the 8th?
By the 8th, please.
Okay.
That way I can get those final changes or alterations drafted and in.
Okay.
To have.
Does that need your eyes?
Sure, I can have a look. If council wants me to, I can have a look.
Do you think that'd be advisable?
Sure.
Okay, happy to do it.
Okay. And then Kim, do we need anything outside of what we've just done?
No, Councilmember Larson made a directive.
Okay.
Without objection, and there was no objection.
Perfect. Thank you.
And related, can I ask the town attorney a question? The MOA, MOU difference. My understanding is MOU is legally binding. MOA,
They're
yeah.
both legally, they're both contracts. So one's
Both
a memorandum
contract.
of understanding, other's a memorandum of agreement. They just are different titles of saying the same thing.
Same thing.
Whereas the parties are agreeing to act a certain way to conduct themselves in accordance with that agreement. It's a contract, really.
So not much difference.
No difference.
No difference.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
We good? Perfect. Thank you. All right. So next is our fiscal year 26 budget work session. I would like to share my thoughts as we go into that discussion. I attended the finance meeting on April 30th and was part of the discussion on budget and real estate tax rate. After careful consideration and meeting with staff, I would make the following assessment. Consideration of a 6% real estate tax increase versus the proposed 13.6% tax increase in the fiscal year 2026 budget. This would be a rate reduction from the current 0.105 per 100 down to 0.098 per 100 of assessed value. Line item number 3110-01 would adjust from the proposed $64,317 to $28,477, putting the proposed 2026 budget from $537,610 down to $501,770, which equals to a reduction of $35,840. I would further propose the following areas to find the $35,840 within the proposed 2026 budget. Line item 97001-3, Town Center CIP Gateway Signs, which is $50,000. Line item 94107, Blight Mitigation, reducing that line item by $15,000 and leaving it at $5,000. Line item 431001, Repairs Maintenance Services, reducing it by $11,892, leaving this line item at an even $100,000. This concept does come with risk. Trash service is due to increase by 4% annually, with a possibility of additional increases due to tipping fees in the future determined by the county, and the possibility of not having appropriate funding for future capital projects. Consideration of the 0.098 per 100 rate would give residents assistance in lieu of Prince William County's increase in property assessments. I will now open the floor to the budget session. Thank you. Any feedback?
Did you guys have any briefings before we discuss things or no?
No, I mean, Mayor set it off. The only thing I would add is I appreciate Supervisor Ware being here today. One thing I did leave at the dais today was the forecasting. Councilman Pasanello wanted to see amortization of what it would look like for those loans that were being discussed, 2.5, 3.5, and the maximum, which would be a 5.8. The breakdown there will show you what it would look like per fiscal year. I believe in the finance meeting this last week, the town manager and I recommended, from what we recall for the current project, the town center master plan of 3.5 will be most likely what we will look for. That would mean that for the next 20 years, though the supervisor did have a point that our debt obligation is cut in half from last year and will be fully paid off as of August 1st. If the town is entertaining going into this town center project, especially with the turn lane, to offset some of this traffic, which seems to me from Supervisor Ware potentially is going to be more. It'll put a debt obligation back for about $280,000 every fiscal year. I broke it down to you guys in the amortization report. So that's something that we just want to be considerate, and as Councilman Pasanello wanted to see that information, we were able to obtain it from the finance analysis team. As far as the mayor's proposal, that's something that obviously you guys want to discuss. But I do believe that Councilman Pasanello during finance did seem that 6% was something he was discussing as well. Aside from that, are there any specific questions when it comes to the budget or the public presentation today?
So regarding that 6%, what does that translate into in terms of increases on existing homes? Do we have any idea on average? I know you had averages here, like $50.
Correct. I could get that to you, but looking at roughly a majority of a lot of the homes that have been here longer will actually see a decrease, a saving of $10 to $12 less from last year. As you recall, in the real estate council, 90,000 90 million of those assessed values are coming from the homes. And I think we've been very transparent when it comes to that conversation as well during finance, that they will see a big jump due to their homes being assessed and being the newest homes. But I could get that to you, council. I could send it to you guys in the email, so you don't have to wait to the next meeting. So you guys have it ready for the next work session, what the average will look like. But quickly doing the math, when the mayor had this envision to request this, it looks like we would save on some of the homes on St. Paul Instead of paying more, they would actually be paying $12 to $10 less from last year's.
Last year, okay. So I know this current fiscal year, we reduced the rate, and then what we're potentially proposing is also doing further, reduction, right? So I think we've talked about doing so at some point. We may face challenges if we need to raise taxes, right? Potentially residents facing a significant increase down the road. You never know what the future holds, right? An alternative would be to adjust their tax bill somehow, right? What I was thinking is, for example, our car tax, right? At some point, I used to see where normally it would be this, but because of some governor, something, I forget what it was, program, it will be reduced by this much. So we end up paying less than technically what we needed to pay based on the rate, right? Is it possible to take that approach for the council to decide what the reduction would be, right? As opposed to going down, and eventually maybe going up in tax rate. Does that make sense? Is that something an approach that we can take?
I don't know. I mean, that's something we can discuss. But I'd be more than happy to discuss it during the finance.
Yeah, the advantage of that approach is at any time if we decide that we cannot afford to give reduction in tax assessments, what have you, right? Then we just stop giving the credit as opposed to increasing the rate, right?
Yeah.
We could have that discussion. I find that a little bit more complicated, just like the refunds were not as easy as people think they were.
Yeah.
Those are, it takes a little bit more, on the audit side, it takes more staff time. Alexandria and myself, till this day, I could tell you that even though that refund was done in 2023, I am still dealing with it. It's still costing administrative fees to do stop payments, to reissue checks. People don't seem to receive them. People lost them. Some people have never even heard of. I have to keep track of that. I think with this approach, to answer your questions, the biggest project that we have is this town center master plan. I think with the financial analysis and forecasting, it showed a path on how to obtain that. The CIP always, it is a plan. It is a plan of things we want to hit. Similar to COVID, when Emily and I were here, we were able to adjust when, if times slow down, we're able to anticipate and reduce the expenditures going out. That's one way we can do that. But to set up something about a kind of like a credit program, I don't know. I think if anything, it would be more, we can have those discussions, but I just don't know how that would work, because it is a lot more work to do, even with the tax refunds, which in 2012, I believe they did. It was a pre-template already.
Mhm.
But again, administratively, you guys don't see it, but there is more cost to it behind it, almost going 3 years later on that. But we could discuss it.
Okay.
But and the difficulty is, the car market is a little bit more stable and is not as volatile as what the housing market is. So that is huge to try and predict what the depreciation will be of the housing.
No.
The housing values.
What I was proposing is, for example, based on my calculation, if we were to keep the current tax rate based on the increase in the assessment value, my property, the bill would be like $70 more in comparison to last tax period, right? What I'm suggesting is reflecting whatever we are supposed to pay per the 0.105,
Yeah.
but reflect some sort of a $70 credit so that we pay the same as what we pay. I know there's a 6% that you're proposing. We pay the same as what we paid last year. Does that make sense? Just reflect it in the bill. At the end of the day, what we collect is whatever we are billed, right? But in terms of the assessment, it's up and down. We don't need to do anything with that. It's just the reduction, right?
Right.
We need to make make the decision on the appropriate reduction. That's all I'm saying. But I do like the fact that we're considering going down, right? Again, I was having a hard time justifying our residents to pay more, knowing where we are financially, right? I mean, I was thinking, right, last fiscal year, I mean, 2024, right? We had a $1 million in surplus, right? And this fiscal year, we're projected, net ordinary income is projected is over 600K, which is surplus, right? But even after what I would consider to be significant increases in budget as a result of hiring 2 additional officers, and then we did created new positions on the staff side, right, on town administration. Even after all that, even after our trash and recycling bill going up, right, we're still projected to have a 600K surplus, right? So I think we can afford to tackle what we need to tackle in terms of CIPs, what have you, without asking our residents to pay more in taxes. I don't think it's warranted, in my opinion, right? That's my viewpoint. But I'm glad that we're considering at least in going down as opposed to going up, right? Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Absolutely. I enjoyed the finance meeting, so. Do you have anything, Justin?
Yeah, the 6%, I like the 6% and where that kind of stands. Like I said, again, what Roberto does with the finances, he's kept everything performing strong. Expenses are under control. Net income is strong. He's used the ARPA funds and we need to use those before the deadlines. But he's been having us trending up and you know, I agree with his assessment and with your assessment of the 6%.
That was my ballpark figure too. So I think that's worthwhile to move forward with. I'm assuming we're still going to have another work session on this before we do a vote?
Yeah, yes, that is correct. In the consensus, I think for the work session, I will bring that budget with those adjustments. Obviously, council will still all, as a board, also have the opportunity to discuss it, but just as you know, if the board here is amenable to it, I would go ahead and work out that scenario that the mayor has proposed for everyone after that. And at the work session, I'll make sure that that's presented to you guys. And you guys can obviously discuss it even more then. Yeah, so we'll go forward with that.
That would be the May 27th
Correct.
work session?
Correct.
All right. Anything additional?
Well, like Representative Weir was saying, you know, with the tariffs and everything out there, we don't know the stability of what's in the head. I hate being reliant on our meals tax because that's going to be the first thing that's going to see a hit because people are going to stop going out and eating. So, but we'll have to deal with that when we see the trending happening. So just, we'll probably have to readdress this quarterly like we typically do.
That is a great point. I was fortunate enough to be working with Councilman Ware when he was here as a board member when we were coming out of COVID, but during COVID, worked closely with Emily and at the time the town manager. I can tell you that I can see the trends coming. So I obviously will be the first one to draw any red flags to anyone. And also we've again, reiterate that we were the first ones that were here trying to adjust to the expenditures when we need to. And that's something that we will continue doing as we always have. Yeah, I think the move is a good consideration. I appreciate the mayor, is making it known that there is a risk to it as well, because the trash service will go up by 20% by the end of this 5-year contract, and that's not in addition of any future tipping fees, which I know the county is looking at next year for sure. Yep, and Councilman Bayene, always enjoy our conversations, but just remember, the surplus does look great now, but now that we've started executing some of these projects, I think you get to see firsthand how quickly the money goes. And, in this scenario, just something to consider is that if this project takes a hold, that 610 is quickly cut to more 400 or 300,000 if we're paying 280 as a debt every year. So it just depends on the project, though. It looks great now, we just got to think about further on down the line, but appreciate your comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
For this report for the VLMF VACO financing, would that have anything to do with the 6%?
Yeah. With the amortization, it just kind of gives you a idea. So when they came here for the 5-year forecasting, Stephen and David, Councilman Passanello wanted to see if it's possible to see what the scenarios will look like at the different loan rates. Apologies. So this is just kind of give you an idea. It's a theory on how it works. If you get that percent of interest and what it would look like for the next 20 years. What I did is that because they work on a calendar year, what I did is I worked it as a fiscal year, how it would look in our budget going forward. As far as the 6%, I hear everyone, and I think the mayor being part of that meeting, having being on the liaison position the past 2 years, she took it upon herself to request this. I'm more than happy to oblige. So that's the scenario we worked out with. As far as this budget, we can all discuss it. It'll work. But yeah, the 6%, as I think did last year, Councilmember Villena, what we did was not actually a reduction. What we did, not a true reduction, because what we did is we compared it to the CPI, the inflation rate. And I think Councilman Passanello that's kind of what he wants to go towards, is what he's really trying to promote. But obviously that's going to be a discussion for council as a whole. But that's what we did. I gave that scenario in our report for the real estate public hearing. I included it in the report for today's presentation. So that's always there as well.
Equalizer plus CPI. I think that's what we did, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Roberto.
Anything else? No? All right. Well, then we will move on to council member time. So, so the first on the list is Vice Mayor, but he is not here. So we have Council Member Lurson.
Yep, definitely happy Cinco de Mayo. We're leaving early enough. I might go out and partake in a margarita to handle some festivities here. Also, like the mayor said, Clerk Appreciation Day. Thank you, Kim and Alex. That's about all I have. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. Next on the list would be Councilmember Passanello, but he is also not here. So we will go to Councilmember Boudin.
Yeah.
We'll get it.
Kim and Alexandria, thank you for everything that you do. And the only other thing is I want to wish Roberto happy anniversary. Thank you for being here on your anniversary. I know someone at home is patiently waiting for you, maybe unhappy. But thank you for being here. All right.
All right. Is that it? All right. And Councilmember Baker.
To Mayor's point, thank you, Alexandra and Kim, for all you do. You guys get me through a lot of this stuff. Like Ken said, Cinco de Mayo, early happy Mother's Day to everybody, especially my mom, Karen Baker. And Memorial Day's coming up. And last but not least, my boy's gonna kill me if I don't say this, but happy early birthday for him in May, August. And thank you for everybody.
Thank you. All right. And then we have Councilmember Ramirez, but she is not here with us this evening. So that leads me. Thank you so much for all you guys do. It really does go such a long way and very, very much appreciated. I did miss out on my margarita, so maybe I will get a margarita. And then I want to remind everybody about the farmers market on Sunday. Unfortunately, we had to cancel this past Sunday due to the weather. So we will be doing our Mother's Day market on Mother's Day. So I would love to see everybody out there. And thank you for coming this evening. And that is all I have.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion to adjourn in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.